What's up, guys? I've been wanting to talk about this for a really long time, and I feel like there's no time like the present, right? Right. So let's talk a little bit about the modern witchcraft movement. So I'm not going to get into the history of witchcraft just because this ain't that kind of channel, and because I'm pretty sure that we're all pretty well written up on it in some way or another. I do want to talk a little bit about how people see the word witch, or what they think about when they hear it. They always either think of two different types of people. They either think of someone wearing a pointy hat and stirring a cauldron and throwing in some eye of newt, which, by the way, is actually mustard seed, it turns out. Had no idea. Or they tend to imagine that I'm someone who, uses citrine to solve a headache and, tell people to align their chakras when they have a migraine. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with practicing either one of those ways, but that ain't my way. And I feel like I don't hear enough about my way of doing it. And before I go on, I also want to say, I'm not saying it's just my way. I'm not saying that I am the person to follow for all things witchcraft. I am just saying that I know that there are others like me out there, and if they needed to hear somebody talk about it, here I am. So the kind of witchcraft that I practice is called SASS witchcraft. It's SASS, stands for skeptical, agnostic, or atheistic, science-seeking. Sometimes I also like to switch out skeptical for secular. Either way, all it means is that I'm someone who likes to practice without the woo. And here are the things that I do that I feel make it a big part of my life, but that also might be just a little different. And what I can say is that all of these things have really helped my mental health, my inner peace, and helped me feel more stable. So maybe they'll do the same for you. So the first thing that I do is every morning I start with a tarot reflection. There are people out there who believe that tarot cards know the future or the past, or that they know something you don't know. I don't believe that. I believe that they are cards and they know what I know. So basically what I use tarot for is self-reflection, and to help me answer questions that I may already have the answers for internally that I just haven't given myself a chance to think over. So every morning I pull 3 tarot cards, and I ask myself as I pull them what wisdom or focus I need for the day, and then based off of what I get, I set an intention. These intentions are never outside of my circle of influence though. Like, if I get a card that talks about betrayal, I'm not sitting there thinking, so someone is going to betray me today. The cards could not possibly have known that. I couldn't possibly have known that. If it does happen, I consider that to be coincidence. Most of the time, a card about betrayal, I am going to see as either feeling as if someone has recently betrayed me, I have betrayed myself, or I am being warned against betraying myself. Or maybe even just being a little bit more discerning in the people that I trust. But I'm definitely not going to take it to mean that everybody is lying to me. It makes it so that even cards that are usually seen as scary, like the Tower or the Devil or the Death card, they are simply cards that have to do with the self most often. And if they don't have to do with the self, they have to do with an answer to a question that you probably already knew and just didn't feel like facing. And generally, after I do this, I journal as well so that I can think through these things and help myself get to a point where the brain fog is lifted, the cobwebs are out, and I'm ready to face my day with the intention that I originally set. So I'm not sure what other people call this. I call it intentional sensory design. It being that I set up sensory signals for myself for task switching, energy, and self-soothing. A lot of adults are taught to focus on what's in their heads without also having it emphasized that the piece of meat that we have in our heads is reacting and giving us the information based off of the stimuli that surrounds us. So good food, good smells, the things that we wear, these are all just as important as the things that we're thinking or just seeing every day. It's also especially important if you've got ADHD like your girl here. Basically, they have even found in a study back in 2024 that sensory cues help to, and I quote, reduce cognitive load and aid routine formation. So there's actual science behind this. And witchcraft, one of the things that everybody knows about witchcraft is spells. Spells are basically just ritual. And or not even just ritual. They're kind of like those sensory signals, right? So SASS witchcraft, and really all modern witchcraft in general, is about ritual. And it's why I think it helps so many people who are neurodivergent, and actually quite a few people who I run into who are witches are neurodivergent. Lighting the same candles or incense, eating the same food, saying the same words, wearing even the same pajamas is a great way to signal to your body that we are doing anything from being productive to cocooning in sadness for the day. So basically all this means is that if you are purposeful about what your senses take in and make sure that you tie it to the actions that you want, you are more likely to feel more integrated and more in tune with the world around you. And so finally, the other thing that's really helped me out a lot is what I call cyclical living. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically recognizing that life is a constant group of cycles. And I don't just mean in terms of seasons, even though those are important, and I'll get to that in a second. But it's realizing that when things are going badly, things won't always stay bad. And when things are going great, things won't always stay great. So make sure that you try to enjoy it as much as you possibly can. It's realizing that no matter how things are going, that life is just going to keep rolling. And because of that, it actually helps me to stay in the moment. It helps me to, it makes it much easier for me to find my own agency, and moments where I can't control much, I pay attention to the things that I can control. And it makes it easier for me to just roll with difficult things, because I know that if I just roll with it, eventually it will stop. You just kind of remind yourself as often as you can that the wheel turns, and that you're going to have to do the best with what you have right now. And for those who menstruate, this is actually also great for your cycle, your period as well. You just kind of get used to saying, okay, I'm in my follicular phase, for example, so my energy should be the best it's been. I'm in my luteal phase, so I'm probably not really going to serve myself very well trying to focus on things that are planning heavy or energy heavy. You really just kind of start to learn to work with your cycle, and I've been doing that for quite a while, and it really kind of helps you feel as if you have some agency, you have some control, but you also start to learn to accept certain parts of that cycle with a lot less fighting. And then, that brings me to the seasons as well, which is celebrate the wheel of the year. And a lot of people celebrate it religiously, like there's usually deities involved and praying involved, and I don't celebrate it that way. I celebrate it, like I said, in a secular way. And so what that is it is my chance to check in on how the latest season has gone. It gives me a chance to celebrate the changes in the earth, the changes in time, and honestly, the honor of being alive for yet another season. And the beauty of the Wheel of the Year is that it also celebrates the virtues of different seasons, right? So we celebrate the beauty of summer and the energy of the sun and the heat, but we also will celebrate Mabon, for example, which is when we are celebrating the equinox, and we're celebrating both when the sun and the darkness are on Earth for the same amount of time, which translates to celebrating both the positives and the negatives that we've lived through for the year. And, there's no wailing or gnashing of teeth when the seasons change. When the leaves fall off the trees, we don't get upset about it. We welcome winter. When the little buds start to pop up from the earth for spring, we're just as happy to celebrate their arrival as we are their death. It is a beautiful way of honoring the fact that the world changes and it rotates, and it gives us regular cycling seasons. Plus, for someone like me who really loves novelty, it's just really fun to get to celebrate 8 times a year rather than like 2 or 3 or 4. And, it's going to be celebrated differently for everyone. I'm sure that the way that I celebrate is different for others, especially since I live in an area that does not have physical seasons, Costa Rica. So I have to kind of bring the seasons to me. And if you guys are interested in that, I will gladly give a video about it. But it's really just all about welcoming change, welcoming cyclical change, and not trying to fight it and change it and rail against it. And it really tends to help people, not just, I wouldn't even necessarily say ADHD, anxiety is also a thing that I feel that it helps, because instead of anticipating and fearing, you spend a lot of time saying, this is just the season. So if this speaks to you and it sounds like something that might help, I would say definitely do a lot of research, do a lot of reading, ask me in the comments. I'm happy to tell you what works for me. I think, as it is with anything, your practice will wind up being personal, but I can definitely try to help you get on the right path if you so need. And if this didn't help you, but you sat around and listened to me yap, thank you. And if you didn't like this at all and you left the video, I'm not talking to you because you left. So thank you to all of you. I really appreciate it. If you had a good time, make sure you like and subscribe. It'll be awesome to see you again, and I hope we will have a nice chit chat in the next video.